Hello, hello. Welcome to Fempreneur True Confessions podcast.
Welcome, everyone. If you don't know, I am Laura or Oda, and we're here, a bunch of little Odas in your business. So, other duties as assigned. We're here to help out small businesses with all the duties and tasks and things in their business, all the behind the scenes stuff that scary, not scary, just all the stuff. So,
Yeah,
that's what we're here for.
yeah,
It
that's
helps.
Laura. I'm Angelique with Lady Powerhouse Solutions. Laura and I do really similar things. We both have agencies and VAs. And the cool part, though, is that we work together. We support each other. We collaborate. And it's been an awesome, awesome experience. I just love it. Like, we're business besties. When I was in corporate, I had an office. I shared an office with this gal, and she was my work wife. Like, I loved coming to work just so I could work with her, and that's kind of how it is with Laura. I can't wait to, like on Monday mornings, be like, oh, "How was your weekend?" But yeah, and but we originally connected through a group coaching program, and the podcast kind of came about out of that because we felt like, well, there's something missing. Something is missing here. We're not seeing what we are seeing is all these polished, produced, and that's not us. Like, where are our people that are on the struggle
Right.
bus
We're the
every
weirdo
freaking other
collective.
day? You know, but still have an abundance mindset and still, want to support each other and not tear each other down or feel like everybody's your competition. That, every woman out there in business is your no. Well, you guys just, we need to help each other. So that's what we're here modeling. We hope.
Yes.
We
Yeah.
hope. We're
That's
modeling.
We're trying to model. We hope that's where we're getting.
Yeah. That okay, you can be goofy and silly and professional and have an abundance mindset and believe in manifesting and all the things, and still be on the struggle bus too. And that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so yeah, and we invite people to come and share their stories that are similar. Right?
Right. Exactly. Because that's the thing. I think more we see, like, okay, the reality is there is struggle in everybody's business. We love the polished side because we get to see that's maybe because it all looks different in everybody's business, but it's also really good to see and know that not everybody just came out polished, like we are all in that weirdo kind of world where things are up in the air and we don't always have all the answers, but we're, with one of our clients, we're building the plane as we're flying it. So we're just doing it.
You just blew my mind because I had a mental picture of birthing a baby and just how messy and painful and kind of ugly that can be. But at the same time, how beautiful, right? Like, after the birthing pains and the actual delivery, and you get that baby there, and there's this mixture of overwhelming love and gratitude and gratefulness that pain's over. So, but it is like that, having a business and bringing your dream into the world can be hard and messy, and that's okay.
Yeah. We embrace
and we're going to talk about that today. I'm excited.
Right. Yes. We have an amazing guest. So we're going to bring her out of the green room. We've left her in the green room long enough, and we're going to bring her out and introduce her. So today we have Elyse, and she knows what it's like to feel lost and burned out. After spending 5 years overgiving and losing her connection with herself while working in education and youth development, bless you, she set out on a journey to learn how to better care for herself and her community. This journey led her to pursue a yoga teacher certification, human design reader training, and a master's degree in entrepreneurship, in innovation, and leadership. Okay, Okay.
Mm.
In her work as the founder of Be More Connected, she helps ambitious and heart-centered change makers gravitate away from burnout and self-extraction and towards more sustainable and liberating ways of living, working, and relating. Welcome. So glad to have you here today. And my poor New York tongue struggled with that one. So my R's and W's are always jacked up. So I hope I didn't butcher it too much.
You did a beautiful job. Thank you. Thank you for the warm introduction.
You're very welcome, and we're really excited to have you here. We love the little conversations. We have these little warm up conversations in the green room. Like we get
Yeah.
to know you. We want you to understand the guest to be comfortable and understand. Like we're just sitting around in my girlfriend's, living room. There's happens to be a microphone in the middle of the room, and we're just talking biz, right? We're talking about business and all the shit we've been through, or what brought us to dive into this adventure called entrepreneurship, right?
Yes.
And one of the things that we always come back to, well, so there are several. Burnout, definitely, especially for women.
Mhm.
I think men
Mhm.
experience it. I'm not saying they don't, but women, it's just so prevalent, and it's a common theme. It has been a common theme over the past couple of years on the podcast. But on the flip side of that, this idea of the universe, and that's our title today, and what we're talking about today is the universe conspiring for our soul's purpose, and helping us find that ultimate alignment. I feel like, and you had mentioned that when we were doing the initial intake, and I'd love to hear about, like, what does that mean to you, and how you saw it actually unfolding for you.
Yes. Well, I loved how even in your initial intro, as I was chilling in the green room, you all were talking a little bit about that experience of just kind of witnessing other business owners and coaches showing up maybe in social media or in real life spaces with a level of like, polish and perfectionism and yeah, just like operating in a way that doesn't create space for
Mm,
some of that process and messiness and rawness and vulnerability.
yeah.
And I would say that to me feels really connected with my growth, my process of growth and like healing and evolution. And the different inflection points in my journey where I've been able to open myself to receive more support and
Mm,
guidance from the universe. So to break that down a little bit more, I include in my bio that I love to support people who are ambitious and heart centered, and because that's also me. I
mhm,
definitely like identify as someone who is ambitious, high achiever, recovering perfectionist, recovering people pleaser. Also had a narcissistic parent that was very controlling, and so there's just a lot of elements in my early programming that were all about that, about like having to be polished, having to perform, having to appear a certain way.
mm,
And it wasn't until really I was in college and post college that I started to, put myself into community spaces and group spaces and allow myself to share more vulnerably, to be seen, to be more messy, to have access to things that allowed me to unlock more of my creativity and my intuition and my spirituality. And that's where things really started to open up. Because if we're, and this was my experience, like if we're
mhm,
prioritizing how we are being perceived and making performance and outcome an enormous priority, that in turn means that we're not making it an enormous priority to consider what we actually feel, our joy, our creativity, our aliveness, what feeds our soul. Like that's just not, it's not even on the menu. Like it's not even on the table. And so I believe that we are able to experience more of that richness and more of that connection of being tapped in to the universe. Yeah, the universe, our ancestors, our spirit guides, also just practical resources in our physical realm, other people in our physical realm that want to support us. When we are orienting our lives more in the direction of what feeds our soul versus what's feeding our ego or others' perception of us.
Yeah, I just had another picture. I don't know what's up with me today. I keep getting these
pictures.
I'm getting these visual images. But it's like when you're at the beach. You go to the beach, right? And you're there to sunbathe. So, but maybe you don't want to face the sun straight on. Maybe you want to be at an angle, or you want your back to the sun. But what I felt was when you do face the sun and you actually look up at it, the way that warmth actually flows over you and fills you up, and you just get covered in it. So when we're in alignment and we're facing the sun and we're looking up to source, maybe how that can fully envelop us if we're aligned, if we're tuned in. If you're like off to the side doing your own thing over here, and you know the sun's over here, source is over here, and they're like, hey, I'm over here. But when we turn our face, it sounds a little biblical too, because there's a scripture that says us to turn your face to God, so that he can shine down of you, something to that respect. But yeah. And then the other thing you said earlier about having that narcissistic parent, I've heard this over and over and over again with so many people. Entrepreneurs tend to have some kind of narcissistic influence in their history, their development, their relationships, whether it's a spouse, a significant other, sibling, some kind of parent. And now I'm curious about why that is, but we were talking, quite a few.
And I know, like, for me, it was apparent. It was relationships. Like, there was a pattern there that had to be broke. But it definitely is very interesting, like you're saying, Angelique. Like, it always seems to be with entrepreneurs. There's something inserted in there that was, it seems like, that's like a catalyst to it or something. Hidden.
I wonder if it's just,
a kick from deep where you have no idea where it came from. But
no, I definitely. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, it feels like maybe just a developmental or personality trait, because we tend to. My understanding is we tend to attract narcissists, or narcissists in our lives tend to affect us in a way that. So we just want. They're attracted to. Okay, here's the ADD in me. I can't finish a sentence. They're attracted to that. It's true. I'm just being real. That that light, that way we want to just take care of people and love them, and we're so thoughtful and caring and giving until we're empty. That people please. Maybe it's a little bit of people pleasing.
Yeah, it's like to not give you out so quickly, like that lesson of we're gonna have to give, and yes, I'm a giver, and this is what I do. It's just I'm such a giver, and then it's stepping back, going, do they deserve all that give? Like it's a funny question, because as givers, we think it's just everybody and they'll sort it out. Like if our intentions are good, then and theirs aren't, that's not my problem. That's their problem, right? But it is the discernment. We were talking about discernment in a group this morning. And it is the discernment of, should I be giving in this room. I think givers forget to ask, is this something, do I really need to be giving? Do I really need to be doing this? Because we seem selfish, or we don't want to be selfish, right? We don't want to seem a certain way. And when you take care of yourself, that's the selfish side. So when you start saying no to the giving, which is against who we are a lot of times, it feels very strange. But there's an empowerment in that. I mean, I've had to learn that through the last couple of years, especially. And now I know I was there, but it's not. I give what I give out is much different now than compared to what.
And I think some of it's conditioning. It definitely is conditioning and societal beliefs and standards and expectations and things like that, which, part of, if anyone's been through any kind of real inner work, you need to question that. You really need to question that.
Yeah. I was going to say just like one other little piece about this, because I do think that it was such an important part of my entrepreneurial journey to have to navigate like this dynamic, like with this controlling parent. And it was a big catalyst for me. Like I felt, now looking back, so I can feel so grateful for that experience, because I'm like, I felt so much more motivated to break out of this codependent pattern and like move in the world in a different way and advocate for myself and this calling and what I was desiring to do, because I had someone kind of pushing against me and resisting me. So it's so interesting. Like
that's the Scorpio in you. That's it. Oh, you tell me I can't do something. Let me show you. I'm about to show you. You know,
literally.
Yeah. It used to be a bit of a joke. If you wanted me to do something, tell me I couldn't. And I will show you. You don't tell me what I can and can't do,
Right.
Yeah. I didn't know that was a Scorpio thing. I'm gonna have to dig into that a little bit. But you mentioned tuning in, and to be honest, until recently, last few years, that wasn't in my real vocabulary. It wasn't like a daily thing that I even thought or did or talked about. But I recently had someone say to me, "You are really tuned in," and I'm like, "Well, I don't even know what that means. What does that mean? How does it manifest? How does it show up in my life?" So I started paying attention, and it's really cool. It's really cool. Yeah. But I want, the thing is, though, before that, I was completely oblivious. I was tuned in, but I was oblivious to it. And I believe we all have that ability, right, inside of us to tune in, to hear the messages from the universe or God or source or whoever, whatever you call it or believe. It doesn't matter. To me, anyway.
Yeah.
So what I know for me, I get actual like messages on social media, like as I'm scrolling, or we talked earlier about, we have an app. Like I have a meditation app. I have another app that sends me a affirmation card every day. I have another app that's called The Pattern, that it shows you your chart and things that are impacting you right now. And I'll get messages on that. But the weird part is that they all align up.
Yeah.
None of them contradicted.
Every time.
And then I would, or hear something or see something, or so those are the ways that I've paid attention and seen those messages from the universe.
Yeah.
And then there's also that inner check-in where you go inside and you're like, okay, how does it feel? How do I respond without thinking? That's my thing. Get out of your head. It's just right. What's going on right here? That's one thing I've been working on a lot.
That 6-second rule.
That
where you're like, I taught the 6-second rule. So if you're conversating or talking and you do that breath and you ask that question out, the only answer that you listen to is that first 6 seconds, because that's your heart talking. After 6 seconds, your brain kicks in and it starts its own thing, right? So it's like the first 6 seconds, whatever you get in that first 6 seconds is where you would really need to focus. And then after that, your brain's going to talk you out of it.
I've never heard that. Thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely. So you'll see me do that from time to time where I'm like, and then it's just 6 seconds and I just keep going, because after that, I know my brain, my poor guardian angels, they're in overdrive with my brain and the way I convince myself of, you had this thought over here. They're like, this is amazing. This is great. And me, I'm over here like, what? Da, 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 and talking myself out of everything, because that's what I do. So I know my guardian angels and my guides and all that are sitting in the middle going, whoa, no, 6 seconds. Oh, the rest, go away. Don't even let her think it. Like, so I know I giggle because I think that's my visual, is my guardian angels doing like the martial arts, like what to the thought that's gonna come in or whatever.
Like the old comments. Kapow! Top.
We don't like that one, or whatever. So it's very interesting. But that was what I was taught as the HSP when I did the HSP stuff, was the 6 second rule. You ask your heart a question, in 6 seconds it gives you the answer. Your brain kicks in after that. So yeah.
I love that. And so for your journey, for you, Elyse, because Laura and I talk all the time about our stuff. But I think it's important for other entrepreneurs, other female entrepreneurs, to hear, what does that look like? Like, what am I looking for exactly? Am I looking for, or what's the deal?
Yeah, the process of tuning in.
Yeah, or the process of tuning in, but also what were some of the things that you were like, oh, that's okay, that's for me. I get it now.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I do think that this is a really it's a really personal question. It's a very nuanced question, especially as someone who is a student of astrology and human design and loves to guide people in terms of understanding their own bodies and their own intuition and how to read what their inner guidance, the way that their inner guidance uniquely speaks to them.
Yeah.
I can totally share some things that I've been learning and how I can feel like I'm clicking in to that awareness of yes, this is energetically correct for me. And I will say that with the caveat that even though that is what works for me, it honestly, I was you as a listener, it might not be relevant to you at all.
No.
Yeah. But I know for me, my entry point, my way in was yoga. So I did my 200-hour yoga teacher certification in 2018, and that was just so revolutionary for me because I was coming from that place of being in full burnout and just pushing past a lot of my body's signals in terms of when I was hungry, when I was tired, when I needed to go to the back. It didn't matter. I just needed to attend to a million different things in this over programmed and under resourced facility that I was working in. And so I know that the process of learning how to slow down, do a body scan, understand and actually feel the sensations that I'm feeling in my body, connecting with my breath, just orienting to different ways of moving, stretching, so that I can have more capacity to really feel and sense and know what's going on, what's going on in there in my body, what's wanting to be communicated to me, is a process that has taken many years of just kind of unwinding from the perfectionism, the people pleasing, the performativity. And so that's something I like to invite people into too, is that it's not like, oh, meditate for 15 minutes a day and this is like the perfect formula for awareness and intuition. You just put in the reps. Like, it's a continual ongoing process. And the things that maybe work for you one month might not even work for you the next month either. So there's really no perfecting of this process.
Yeah, there's no formula. There's no formula, right?
Yeah.
There's no algorithm for this.
Yeah.
It's just about, all right, this is
Listening.
how it was for me.
Mhm.
And maybe a little bit of that feels or sounds familiar to someone else, and they can like go, okay, well, let me pick that part out and explore that some more. And then that, it's like a gateway drug, right?
Yeah.
It's like the gateway
Like,
drug.
give me more.
Yes. Like, oh, that
Yeah.
was good. And I understand that. And I've felt that before. That sounds familiar or looks familiar. Let me go explore that some more. So I think, what I'm looking for, what I'm searching for is just those little bits and pieces of stories that each of us share, that another person can connect that tiny little thread to and tug on it and go, okay, let me have some more of this. Let me have some more of this. And they keep tugging. And then there's a knot or a bow, or there's something tied to it. And then they're like, oh, okay. And it's that,
Yes. 100%.
it's definitely that. And I love what you said about putting the reps in. And while that does sound like a formula, it's not about that. I recently heard, and I'll find him and I will credit him, but there's a guy out on social media put a video out. He's this meditation. It's meditation is the practice. Meditation is the practice. The practice of meditating is meditating.
Yes.
There's no arrival per se, because it's like going to the gym. You don't go to the gym and just lift an empty barbell 100 times.
Yeah.
Right?
You're practicing.
Yeah.
Well, with the ADHD, we you and I have talked about, like, I'm not super connected to my body. Like, my emotions I have a very disconnect there. With the ADHD and this thing. So I've had to learn through this spiritual practice, like, what is my body saying? Now, I don't always get those answers. Again, we talked about I see colors. So apparently the colors mean something and I'm learning, right? But I don't always feel. We're talking about, do you feel that in your body? I don't feel it. But my brain is going. Like, things are still being said. I'm still being talked to. Like, you may not feel it here, but this is kind of what it's getting at. Standing. Every so often there is a rush of feeling. And then it's, oh God, okay, well, what's that supposed to mean? Do I discern? What do I do with that? Because I'm not used to always feeling that. But it's very interesting because, like you said, we all have different ways of where that's going to come. I struggle to meditate because I struggle to calm my mind. So it's, if I can only get 2 or 3 minutes of calm before something crazy starts popping into my head, then it's okay, that 2 to 3 minutes. Next time, maybe we can get it to 4 or to 5. Like, it's still that movement of, and it's not.
And that was the point he was making. Was, it is not about how long you are in the meditative state. That is not the goal. The exercise is bringing the mind back to calm. That's the whole thing. That's meditating.
Yeah.
Bringing it back.
Accomplish 1,000 times.
Exactly. That's it. Like, when, and so that's the muscle that you're actually exercising, is that ability to bring back the calm, to come back to that place, because that's what you need when you're in the shit show, in the middle of the storm, and you need to be able to go, okay, I need to bring that calm in and center and be able to react from a place of calm and not react from a place of emotion or fear or anger or whatever. Right? Bring back that sense of calm, gather that love, and then act or speak out of that place versus this other place. And I was like, mind blown.
Yeah.
Because I was like, oh, I've only meditated for 30 seconds. No, it's not about that. It's about, did you come back again and again and again and again and again and again for 4 hours?
Yeah.
You're a fucking ninja,
Right.
right? If you could do that for 4 hours, that's the arrival. If you want to call, if you want to label it, if you want to put a name on it, I'll get you a trophy for that if that's what you want. But so, Elyse, for you, we're here to talk about, the universe conspiring for our soul's purpose. What's one little story you can share where that happened for you?
Yes. Well, I really think that it is so valuable to really center that reframe that we were just talking about.
Mhm.
Because something that I find very often with folks that I'm like connecting with, whether we're doing one-on-one coaching or group programs or workshops or things like that, is that there is this like constriction and holding back and there's like a self-censorship, a self-limitation around what we even allow ourselves to experience because we think we're not doing enough or we're not ready or we haven't done the certification or we don't know enough, whatever the story is, like in our own
Right.
mind, that then locks us like in this particular place where we're not taking any meaningful action to do the thing that we're actually desiring. And so for me, I think the biggest unlock where things really started to like shift and come into motion was
Mhm.
when I really decided to see myself as a teacher and a healer and a guide and a mystic and an intuitive, and just started saying out loud like the things that I was desiring and the things I was already doing, instead of hiding it and keeping it to myself and just assuming that people were going to think that it was weird and that I was crazy. There was like a massive way that things just started to open up more just from making that internal like identity shift within myself.
Mhm.
So I would say, yeah, that really like stands out in my mind as like a particular month in like 2020 when I just like decided to do that.
Okay, that's it.
Yeah, and people were like, "Oh, you do that? I didn't even know. I had no idea that you were into that.
Yeah, yeah.
Can I get a reading? Can I talk to you
So
about?"
what other signs did you get from the universe that supported you in that?
Yeah. And I do think that that was like a process of being able to build and cultivate the internal safety to open up in that way. And I would say that that process took about 2 years until I was like, "Oh, I felt safe enough to make that internal shift and have that unlock." So I did the yoga teacher training in 2018, and in 2019 is when I got connected. And I heard you guys saying this too, that you got connected through like a group coaching program.
Mhm.
2019 was when I enrolled in my first cohort that was around like creative business ownership. And that like plugged me in with a community of like-minded folks where we could come together and share ideas and learn and create and build. And I was receiving a lot of positive like connection where in the past I had felt somewhat isolated and felt
Okay.
like what I was
Okay.
doing, I couldn't find a place for it necessarily. It felt so divergent from what everyone else around me was doing.
Mm.
Uh, and also, astrology and human design were really huge for me because I went down the rabbit hole and just started geeking out. And as I was learning about these different aspects of like my energetic blueprint and
Mhm.
feeling so much resonance and feeling so affirmed in some of those aspects of myself that I always knew, but now had language to like articulate and express, that felt also very empowering for me, because I was like, oh, I'm not just wanting to share these things for the sake of it. Like, this is connected to something deeper. Like, this is a deeper part of my calling and my mission and what I'm here to do. And so I felt like I had a little bit more fire under my butt to figure out like how to actionably start to show up in the world in a different way.
So what changes did you make to do that?
It interesting because
Oh, wait. Were you going to ask a question too, Laura?
I was in delay. So sorry, I think I interrupted in there in a bad way.
Okay. What were you going to say?
But I would say, I find it interesting when we're speaking to people. I am more open on this podcast with my clients, with people I am more strangered with than I am with my world, my inner world. So my close family, my immediate family here in the house know that I'm on a spiritual journey. They know I've always been kind of that person from a young age. It shut it off for a while and it's reopened, right? But when it comes to people like even aunts, uncles, close friends, things like that, I've had quite a shift. And there's a lot of people have kind of removed themselves from my life before I opened up to what was really going on. So what they know about me is if they've seen it here or whatever, but this isn't my life with my immediate family. We don't do a lot of conversations about the spirituality and the things. Now, since I'm not Christian, I've never really been Christian, and I live in a world that's a lot more Christian around me. I happen to have been Jewish, but I am very spiritual. It's very interesting how a lot of people are like, oh, with my family, I can be this way. But with strangers, it just seems so weird. And for me, I'm like, I can tell a stranger, oh, yeah, I'm a witch, and have zero problem with it. But say that to your family, it's a little different. So I'm in the opposite, I guess, in a lot of ways. With my family, my close-knit group of people that have been with me for my life are not really the ones that understand this part of my life. I don't discuss it. I don't push it. I don't really discuss it. So.
And that is because there's history there. There's that predefined filter that, whereas with a stranger doesn't know you from Adam, there's no judgment. There's no,
or there can be, and you don't give a shit. Like, whatever. I don't care what a stranger thinks of me.
That's true. That's true.
And for my family, I don't necessarily care what they really think, but I think there's always that hesitation because I don't want to explain myself. I have a family that's like, well, explain yourself. That's their thing. Explain yourself. And I'm like, shit, I don't want to. So I don't want to have the discussion because I have zero need to explain myself in my world anymore. And I think that's where it comes in. Like, if I don't have this discussion, then I don't have to say shit. And I don't have to explain myself or defend, to what I believe, how they're going to respond or how they always have, So I find it's very interesting how we're connected in different ways and how it affects us in the spiritual world as well. Because not everybody is keen on the woo-woo.
Yeah.
Much, or I hear that a lot. Oh, that's a lot. That's heavy. Like, oh, whatever. Because God and Jesus aren't heavy, but okay.
None of that was heavy. There's all the crucifying and no, none of that's heavy. So, Elyse, what I was hearing was as you it started with this almost a catalytic. You started yoga training. And this introduced you to the ideas, and then you started to chase those ideas or surrender, however it felt for you, surrender, or they piqued your interest and you pulled on the thread. You went down the rabbit hole, which led to another avenue or another person, which led you to another modality, which led you to all of the inner growth, right? The spiritual stuff. So
yes,
we're talking about the universe conspiring. So all of that from the catalyst to the person you met that was in that yoga training that led you to the next thing, which led you to the next thing. It's all divinely guided. That's what I believe. Yes. I believe that And our only responsibility is to be open enough, okay?
Yeah.
Open enough to recognize it. Just the tiniest bit to go, huh, I kind of like you.
Right.
My friend recently was like, intentionally pushing my buttons. Intentionally push them. And I believe now, after the fact, after my buttons were pushed, that okay, well, that was divine timing, because I needed my buttons pushed, because those buttons were the only ones left stopping from me from moving into the next thing that I know I'm called to do.
Yes.
But I still had this button oh man, it was a freaking corset. It wasn't just a button. And
we've been pushing it.
Oh, girl, I was tight. I was wound up tight up in there.
It's true. We were pushing him forward behind, like push it. But yeah,
and I can laugh now, but it wasn't any fun when those buttons came undone. It
Yeah.
wasn't any fun at all. It was scary. It hurt.
So uncomfortable.
I was afraid. It was so uncomfortable.
And wanting to be mad at someone or something, and knowing that horrible mirror, like the only one I can be mad at is me. That's the terrible one, where you just know you're sitting in it and you're like, shit, I'm the only one to fucking blame. Like you're really there, and it's like, all right.
Yeah. I was going to say, let's talk about this, because this is actually something I think it's really, really valuable to peel back the layers on and just kind of help to illuminate more, because, and this is something I'm trying to really weave into more of my writing, and I'm also going to be bringing my podcast back soon, is like, when we talk about some of these ideas, like abundance, growth, the universe conspiring with us, it's so much more fun to talk about the stories where things open up and expand really like miraculously and really beautifully. And that does happen. I'm not saying that doesn't happen, but I would say that actually the majority of the time, like maybe in the 75 to 80% of the time, when we're receiving our messages and when we're receiving guidance to shift or change or pivot or grow or look at something differently, or like be open to a new perspective, it doesn't land with us as something that's comfy or that feels like an inherently easy thing to do. It's actually terrifying, and it's scary, and it feels uncomfortable, and it pushes us outside of our comfort zone. And we have to cultivate a lot of courage, and also lean on our community and lean on other people to love us and support us like through those changes. And in the way that there's also mention of this at the very beginning of the podcast too, like in the intro, talking about birth, how that is so messy. Like change is messy. Change is chaos sometimes. Like the process of like allowing yourself to be led, be guided, is oftentimes going to be a process that we don't love while we're in the messy middle of it, but it's still essential. It's still essential to get where we want to go.
And I'm finding that it is uncomfortable, and it can bring up old wounds, old patterns, and old stories. But there's this knowing, and I don't know why or how, knowing that it's okay, you can get through this, and on the other side, and that's the motivation, that's the willingness to move forward, even though it's uncomfortable, even though it's I don't really want to do that, but I know that if I do keep pushing, something beautiful is on the other side. If I spend 9 months dragging this belly around, dealing with back pain and contractions and heartburn that's such a beautiful metaphor for just inner growth and spiritual growth, because it's just kind of like that. You feel like, but you know, at the end of this 9 months, there is this amazing thing, and it doesn't stop growing.
Right.
It doesn't. It's like, oh, okay, it's here. We're done. Nope. It just gets more beautiful and more. You love it. I think that's one of the most amazing things to me about being a mom specifically, but I'm sure fathers have their own perspective on this, but you love that baby from the time you recognize it.
Yeah.
From that very instant, you love it.
Yes.
Them. It, whatever. I'm not hung up on those words.
Yeah.
You do. And then when it comes out and it has this physical form and face, you're just like, oh, I'm in love. I'm in love with this thing. And so it's that kind of feeling. That's the best way I know how to describe it, is that's what keeps me, even though it's very uncomfortable. And I mean, I just want to not do it. I just want to like crawl in a hole and just stay there instead. But I know if I do that, I'll never get to see or hold that baby, that feeling.
Yes.
You know? And that's what keeps me pushing. Like literally those labor pains, that's what keeps you breathing through those labor pains.
Yes. Yes. And I think that that's something that can be so valuable for us to be able to have, whether it is like, loved ones, collaborators, friends, co-conspirators, like witness us in our journey.
Oh, our doula, right? Our doulas.
Like be our doulas.
Our midwives.
Help encourage us and to guide us and like remind us to breathe, remind us to drink water, remind us to stretch. Like this is a marathon. Our lives are not, we're never going to get to like one perfect destination point. Because as you were sharing, like even once the baby is born, it's like, okay, now I'm on a whole new adventure. I'm on a whole new journey. Now I'm raising a child. This is massive. Wow. But that was so beautiful. I love the way that you shared that. That was so beautiful.
Well, thank you. Like I'm in the zone today, evidently. And Laura, I want to give you an opportunity because I could hear you. And I just kept going. So, but it also reminds me too, there's a flip side. So sometimes there's things don't happen the way we think they should. And there's this grief and loss, miscarriage.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's okay too. There's lessons in that. And I feel like that's a whole nother 14 series podcast show. Okay. Not even going to go there. But Laura, what were you trying to say as I was rumbling, tumbling?
Oh no, my internet was funky. So I have no idea where I was in that conversation. So we're good. No, I was saying, you know, like, and I relate to what you were saying, but yeah, I'm kind of in delay. So I apologize, everyone.
You're fine. And so we are a little over time, but anything else, Elisa, that you would like to share with us about this idea of the universe conspiring for us?
I think there's like a few different things that are popping into my mind right now after this piece about birth and mothering. I actually have been feeling really inspired right now by another creator, author. Her name is Alexis Pauline Gumbs. And I was tuning into a podcast recently where it was actually similar format to this podcast, where it's like two women who are friends who were highlighting Alexis Pauline Gumbs and her body of work around revolutionary mothering. And it's essentially like this concept and this philosophy that, in the same way that we want and are mothering children in the world, it also is really beautiful for us to think about how world building is also an act of mothering. And what does it mean to build a motherful world, like a world that is really centered around care and love and tending and belonging and building home, and that is just so countercultural to the way that, especially in the West, like in very capitalist, imperialist, like power over kinds of cultures are structured, that it turns everything on its head when we are centering mothering as the most powerful operating principle, or like way of organizing our relationships and our lives. And so when you were speaking about that piece, that's what was really like coming forward for me, and it feels so important, especially at this time. And it's something that I'm really excited about centering more in my professional work, but also in my personal work. I don't have children yet, but yeah, I'm getting married this year, and just thinking about how that's going to be a part of my life in the next probably 2 to 3 years, and just kind of shifting into that new identity, the different seasons and cycles of life in womanhood, like transitioning from maiden to mother. There's just so many things, as you were sharing, that were coming forward for me, and I'm like wanting to put a nice bow on this conversation and not quite sure how, but I wanted to articulate like what was coming forward for me.
That's awesome. That's fabulous. I love it. I love it. I love it. Thank you so much for, I think you catalyzed this whole conversation. Like Laura and I were having some conversation before you came in, and then you came in, and we kind of continued the conversation as if you were like already knew what we were talking about. And
Cool.
now we were just, continuing the conversation, for the live portion of the podcast. But this definitely feels like something we could talk more about. And like you said, peel back the layers, right?
Yeah.
So we'd love to have you back. Absolutely. And also want to, what?
Oh, I was saying that would be fun.
Yes, girl. And I feel like we didn't really get very far, but it's like more like depth versus breadth, right?
Yeah.
Some conversations are like that.
Mm-hmm.
Let's focus in on this one thing. So one of the things we like to do on the podcast is we like to have the current guest introduce next week's guest. Next week's guest is Melanie Morgan. She's another repeat podcast guest. I had the pleasure of attending Melanie's Sheep House at the beginning of the year, and you guys, so excited about her coming back and talking more with us about what she does and how she does it, and her journey, and all the things that happened for her during her her evolution into being where she is right now. So, Elyse, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Awesome.
Melanie Morgan is a spiritual evolution expert whose journey is a testimony to the profound healing power of transformation. Having endured and overcome childhood trauma, long-term abuse, self-neglect, and the heart-wrenching loss of loved ones, Melanie has emerged as a beacon of resilience and divine feminine empowerment. Her path from brokenness to self-love has not only transformed her own life, but now guides others to their own path of healing and self-discovery. As the author of From Broken to Becoming and the creator of Sheep House, a transformative quest that's redefining spiritual growth, she offers a unique perspective on healing. Through her words, teachings, and deeply personal stories, she sheds light on the intricate journey from pain to purpose. Her work isn't just about love and light, it's about embracing the shadows, facing down fear, and ultimately discovering an empowered self, with experiences ranging from spiritual encounters to personal awakenings that defy conventional beliefs. She offers a truly transformative approach to healing. Today, or next week, Melanie will be sharing her
Yes.
gift of healing and divine wisdom with audiences worldwide. She connects deeply with others, helping them break free from pain and embrace a life filled with joy, purpose, and courage to truly live. Her story is an inspiring reminder that the journey through darkness can reveal a life of light, authenticity, and boundless love.
Wow, right?
Powerful.
Yeah, yeah. Yes, so Melanie will be here next week, live 12 Eastern on Monday. And Elyse, we're going to drop all of your links in the show notes for your website, your what's the name of it? Remind me.
Oh, the Substack.
Substacks.
Mhm.
And all of all of your social and all of that will be in the show
Beautiful.
notes.
Love
And as well as, some of the stuff we talked about today, like links to Cheney and who was the other one? It was Alexis. There's a
Yeah.
link in there for her. Also, the 6-second rule that Laura talked about.
Mm.
Dang, right?
So good.
So good. And I think that it's been a recurring instance where there's yoga has been a catalyst
Mm.
to this moving into the spiritual and healing, doing the healing work, the inner journey stuff.
Yeah.
So I would love after we're done here, if you can email me your, where you started with your yoga journey, so we can
Oh,
share
good.
that with our audience, because I think
Yeah.
that is such a fantastic place to start. That and Reiki, I have
Mm.
heard so over and over and over again. Well, I started with yoga, or I started with Reiki. It feels like it's always like one of those two things.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for being with us here today. We so appreciate the time that you spent here and the conversation,
Yes.
right?
Thank you so much for having me. This was so
Yeah.
lovely. I love getting to, go deep and have these conversations that feel, as you were sharing, it's just like we're going deep. We're getting vulnerable. We're talking about the real things. It's the best.
Yeah. The real things. And plug for the podcast, we are launching a membership. It's in the works, and it will be called the Fempire Collaborative Network. And it's all about collaboration over competition and supporting each other through this entrepreneurial journey called
Yeah.
life. Maybe sometimes it feels like that.
Yeah.
So go check that out at ftcpodcast.com. We would love to get for you to be one of the first we notify when that sucker's ready to launch. I'm super excited about it. Laura had to drop off. She's having technical dickies today, and she will be back again next week, of course. So we will see you guys all next week, Monday at 12 Eastern. Bye.